Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, alongside the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle. He's feeling good because the Yankees won tonight. We'll see how he feels when this episode airs. I'm Chris Grace. We are really looking forward to breaking down another week of NESCAC football for you. We had a great week 3. The parity has never been like we've seen this year. We're 3 weeks in, and there are that's right, 0 undefeated teams in the NESCAC. We only have one team that is winless. There's a ton of balance. There's a ton to talk about. We have a couple great guests. We're going to talk to Amherst head coach E.J. Mills, the dean of NESCAC coaches, having a resurgent season. We're going to talk to the leader in the clubhouse for NESCAC Offensive Player of the Year, Luke Kurzum, the signal caller for Hamilton, coming off their first win of the year, as he is just dropping dimes all over the place. And Dave and I are going to cover last week, and we're going to preview this week as you get ready for another week in the NESCAC. There's only 9 of them, and we're at week 4. So, Dave, we had some big matchups last week. We've got a lot to talk about. I think the thing that makes the most sense is to start right from the top. Amherst was hosting Tufts. We talked to Coach Savetti last week. He was worried about the fact that it was a relatively close commute, but it's a quick turnaround time. And boy, did Amherst ever jump all over Tufts, as the Mammoths took a 30-0 lead at halftime of that football game. And then they were able to hold on for a 30-14 victory. Merrick Hill continues to be a dual threat. Amherst doing enough defensively as we expect, and Tufts really struggled to get anything going on offense. And the Mammoths, I think the most impressive victory in week 3.
Yeah, Chris, first of all, we have 6 2-1 teams, 6 teams tied for the NESCAC lead. Really, I haven't gone back and done the research, but it's really unprecedented to see that level of competition. So I think it's great for the league. I think it's awesome for the fans, and it sets us up for an exciting rest of the season with 6 weeks left. Yeah, the Amherst Tufts game, I have to tell you, I was pretty surprised by the end result. This was my one loss this week. I was 4-1 with my picks last week. This was my one loss. I did pick Tufts to beat Amherst, and boy, was I wrong. As you said, Amherst jumped out to a 30-0 lead at the half. Couple interesting points about this game. The 30 points that Amherst scored was their largest offensive output since 2019. 6 years they haven't scored 30 points, and it was their most first half points in 10 years. Most points they've scored first half of game since 2015. All the way around, Tufts did try to make a furious comeback in the second half. They just didn't have enough. It was 30-13. Interestingly, the stats in this game were pretty even, but kudos to Amherst. Their offense with Merrick Hill, he's having a really great season. He's tied for the league with Luke Kurzum, who is our guest this evening, with 7 touchdown passes. He's only thrown 2 picks. Last year, that was his Achilles heel. He threw a bunch of interceptions in the 6 games he played. I will say this, Amherst, the one thing that they've done the last couple of years is they have just not played a full 60 minutes. And here's just another example. They played really well in the first half. Second half, they only had 40 to Amherst, only had 41 years of total offense in the second half, which, that's tough they fortunately built enough of a cushion, and
30-0 gives you a little leeway.
It gives a lot of leeway. But You know what? Hats off to them for getting it done. They go to 2-1. And Tufts, we'll talk about Tufts when we rank them on the rankings later, but they dropped to 2-1. They were undefeated coming into this game. And we had Coach Savetti on last week. You could definitely tell there was a little bit of concern in his voice about this game. The defense, despite the 30 points, did play well in the second half. The offense is struggling a little bit for them, and we'll see if they can right the ship this week. But really good win for Amherst, and they head into week 4 2-1.
What I think is so intriguing about this is we talk about Merrick Hill. We go into the year and both of us and everyone I talk to says we don't know what the quarterback play is going to be like in this league. And what we're seeing is not only pretty good quarterback play, but the guys who are the new starters, we're seeing some dynamic,
absolutely
two-way quarterback play. We're seeing guys who are doing it both through the air and on the ground. And we'll talk about Owen Johansson, but between Merrick Hill, Matt Fitzsimons, Owen Johansson, guys who are seeing their first action really in the NESCAC, significant action, have performed at a very high level. And I think again, we don't want to make the mistake of talking about 2026, but 2026 may be the year of the quarterback in the NESCAC, but we'll talk about that as the year progresses.
Let's not forget Jackson Carroll at Trinity, right?
Right, of course.
He's getting it done.
We didn't know who was going to be the guy at Trinity, but it feels like they've settled in and they figured that out as well. And it was obviously only a matter of time, but we'll get to that when we get to that game.
Yep.
So Amherst improves to 2-1, and let's not kid ourselves. There are no undefeated teams in the NESCAC. I think realistically, there are a couple teams that feel like they should be undefeated. Amherst has got to be at the top of that list because Amherst blew a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter against Bates and obviously lost in double overtime. But I think the Mammoths have as much of a claim as anyone to be undefeated in the NESCAC right now. And they're 2-1 as they've got a big trip to Middlebury coming up on Saturday. And we'll talk about that later on in the episode. Next up, the game that my colleague was at as the Wesleyan Cardinals traveled to Maine to take on the Bates Bobcats, and our good friend Coach Coyne. Listen, Wesleyan jumped out early. Bates responded, and I wouldn't call it a nail biter, but it was a competitive game. And then Wesleyan completely took control of the game in the second half and pulled away. Obviously, a big injury for Bates early in the game as they lost Sergio Beltran, their quarterback. And Wesleyan with a workman-like effort and really controlled this one. Nothing is going to jump out in the box score in terms of anything super dynamic, but a really solid workman-like performance from the Cardinals.
Yeah, I thought Wesleyan played as complete a game as you'll see in the second half, both offensively and defensively. By all rights, they could have won this game 30-7. They were driving at the end, and fourth and goal from the 4, they threw an interception. If this was a regular situation, they might have played that a little bit differently, but that's neither here nor there. I think the one thing that did stand out for me was Wesleyan's defense, and specifically their run defense. You're playing an option team who runs the ball a lot, likes to run the ball. They've got the arguably best running back in the NESCAC, and Ryan Linsky. We've had him as a guest on this show. Very dynamic player, first team NESCAC player, rushing champ last year. And look, they held Bates to 32 yards rushing on 31 carries, which is, in my mind, that was the one eye-opening stat in the box score. And the other thing is Bates was probably forced to throw the ball a little bit more than what they would feel comfortable with. Wesleyan did a nice job rushing the quarterback. They had 5 sacks. The thing that most impressed me about the game was really the Wesleyan defense. On the day, against the team, Bates, it's an option team. They primarily run the ball. They have Ryan Linsky at running back, first team all NESCAC, league rushing champ. Wesleyan only gave up 32 yards rushing on 31 carries. So in my mind, that's exceptional. Wesleyan's defense, and they also, Bates, of course, because they were playing catch-up, had to throw the ball a little bit more. They lost Beltran, who's more their running quarterback. They had to go with Perry. And Wesleyan rang up 5 sacks. Kudos to the West defense. I thought they really played a very good game, particularly in the second half. And I think that was a good win bouncing back after Tufts. They stay in the race. The other teams cooperated. Williams, of course, losing to Trinity, and Tufts losing to Amherst. So boom, no more undefeated teams. Everybody's back to square one on the season.
Yeah, I thought what was really interesting watching the beginning of this game, prior to Beltran going out, Bates looked like they had a decent game plan, and they found a little bit of success utilizing the option pitch, right? And Wesleyan ended up getting a 4th down stop on that first drive. And then on the next drive, Beltran got hurt and Bates had to pivot. That pivot never, so it's hard to judge this game in terms of what Bates's offense was going to look like, because clearly there's no way that Coach Coyne and his team was expecting for this to be what they were going to be faced with, right? But from
and you never want to see a
no, of
game,
course,
and I'm not saying the game was decided because of the injury, but it definitely changed the way that I'm sure Bates had game plan all week. It changed what they were going to focus on. They had to pivot pretty quickly.
yeah, and I'm sure you were thinking this as well as I was the second that I saw Sergio leave the game, and it was pretty evident that he wasn't going to come back in. It was pretty much a matter of whether Wesleyan was going to make any mistakes that was going to allow Bates to stay in the game, because that seemed like that was going to be the only way that the Bobcats were going to have a chance. And credit to the Cardinals, they didn't do that. So they did what they needed to do. It's a road victory in the NESCAC, and they completely control their own destiny at this point, which is all you can hope for if you're a Wesleyan Cardinal fan. Excuse me.
I just want to make a quick comment, public service announcement. I just really want to thank and congratulate the Bates College staff, because we tailgated all the different schools and get a chance to meet all. Some of the locations are better than others. Some of the cordiality is better than others, but the way that we get treated up at Bates, the area we tailgate in, just the fans up there, it's really a pleasure to go up there and tailgate and be a part of the atmosphere up there. So just want to thank them for that.
And by the way, when Dave says we, I am not part of the we. I do not get a hall pass to tailgate at Bates or anywhere else. I get home games only. But I appreciate your sentiment there, and I'm sure the Bobcats faithful will appreciate your words as well. As we continue to break down last week's games, our guest on tonight's podcast coming up in just a bit, Luke Kurzum, had a big game as Hamilton got their first victory of the season. They had to wait until week 9 last year to get their first W, but they take down Bowdoin 27-13. And really, Luke Kurzum got off to a good start this year, but this had to be his best game of the year. 24 for 35 for 315 and 3 touchdowns. He spread the ball around to 7 different receivers. He had 6 different receivers with multiple catches. And I think what was maybe most impressive for Hamilton, they rushed the ball pretty effectively. 30 carries for 134 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And Hamilton, who's been knocking on the door, gets their first victory.
Yeah, obviously Luke is playing really well. It's great to get that first win. They got it last year, week 9. Great to get it a lot earlier. They have a lot of confidence going right now. He's got 7 touchdown passes. He hasn't thrown an interception. Obviously, the level of talent that they were playing is not what they're going to probably see this week. So it'll be a little bit more of a test this week when they play at Wesleyan. And I think the interesting thing is not only is their offense playing well, but their defense is playing well. So hey, team gets a taste of a victory. They get the win. They're 1-2. They're arguably right in the mix of things. Bowdoin, on the other hand, we'll talk about Bowdoin later. They're having some challenges right now, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. They have a freshman quarterback, which is never easy. They moved their starting quarterback, Wolfendale, to wide receiver. He's obviously a really good athlete. He was their leading receiver on the day. They'll figure it out. Hummel, this is only I think it's his first game starting. It's only his second game of action he's seen. It's going to take a little while for him to get his feet under him, but I'm sure he'll, like most of these guys, he'll figure it out. Look at Merrick Hill. He's figured it out. So I'm sure that Coach Hammer will get things going with his freshman signal caller at Bowdoin.
Yeah, and Hummel actually had a pretty nice day. Bowdoin scored 10 points in the first quarter, but then their offense stalled. But if you look at his numbers for the game, 14 for 25. He threw a touchdown, didn't turn the ball over, ran the ball fairly effectively. Something to build on, and credit to Mick Wolfendale making that switch. You go into a season thinking you're going to be the quarterback, and they tell you we're going to move you to receiver. 6 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown tells you what kind of athlete he is. And we've talked to Coach Hammer enough times to know that he's going to figure it out. He's going to do whatever he can to put his team in the best position to win, and they'll continue to develop. But obviously, it's been a tough start for the Polar Bears. We keep moving forward from last week. Been under the radar game, I would say, probably the penultimate game that we were really intrigued by, because you had a Colby team that obviously had the stunning win in week 1 against Trinity, taking on a Middlebury team that was 1-1, and the game was in Maine, so we didn't know what we were going to see. And when the first half of this game, it was all Colby. They were up 10-0 at halftime, in complete control. But what we've seen throughout the course of the year, turnovers at the quarterback position biting Colby a little bit, and Middlebury figured out what they wanted to do on offense. And Connor McClellan had a big game for the Panthers, and they outscored the Mules 27-7 in the second half for an impressive 27-17 road victory for the Panthers, who seemingly always get better as the season goes on.
Yeah, great game for McClellan. He was the NESCAC Offensive Player of the Week. Yeah, they start to figure things out. Kudos to them. They're 2-1. They're right in the mix of things, as we thought they would be, even after week 1. They figured things out. They're very good coaching staff. Coach Manigo is an experienced NESCAC guy. They've made a number of adjustments. They got the running game going. The head scratcher to me is Colby. Colby beats Trinity week 1, and maybe they caught Trinity at the right time, right? New quarterback and just confluence of factors, but they've struggled a little bit since. Obviously, they lost last week to Middlebury. They got really beaten pretty badly the week before to Williams. Excuse me. Their offense also seems to be struggling a little bit right now. Miles Drake, experienced quarterback, hasn't thrown a touchdown pass yet. Leads in NESCAC in interceptions. Feels to me like he's trying to force things. Part of the problem there is they haven't really gotten the running game going, and people are focused on Jack Nye, who's, as we've mentioned before, was Rookie of the Year in the NESCAC last year. Look, Coach Cosgrove is there. Once again, very experienced coach. He's been around college football for a long time. I'm sure he will figure it out one of these weeks. Miles Drake, experienced, great athlete. I feel he's saving sort of the best for last.
Yeah, something that needs to be pointed out is there's no team in the NESCAC that has been handed a more difficult schedule to start the year than Colby.
Clearly.
It's not even close. Having to play Trinity, Williams, and Middlebury your first 3 games, that's going to be rough no matter how you shake it. The fact of the matter is, they were in a position where they could have won this football game, and then things just got away from them in the second half. And it's hard. I don't care what level you're playing on, it's hard to win if you're exclusively relying on your defense. And until they figure out a way to cut down on the turnovers and get a more balanced offensive attack, it's going to be tough for Colby. But that's also a team that nobody really wants to play. And credit to Coach Bandigo and Middlebury, as they figured it out. They made the adjustments they needed to. I look back to last year's game against Bowdoin for Middlebury, which I think was week 2, and it was a similar kind of game. They were getting really manhandled in the first half. They were struggling to get any momentum, and they went into the locker room and figured out in the second half. And then next thing you know, they're beating Trinity on the road, and they're right there playing basically late in the season with a chance to win the NESCAC. I think Middlebury's got some guys. They're having to replace a lot of guys, but they're right there with the other 5 or 6 teams that think that they might win the NESCAC this year, which is where we're at.
Absolutely. And by the way, to continue your scheduling point, they play Bates this week, which obviously is a CBB game, but so you have a rivalry game, which has its own challenges, and we'll talk about that later. But then they play Wesleyan next week. Granted at home, but it's still Wesleyan, one of the better teams in the league. So, yeah, the schedule makers were not kind to the Colby Mules. But you got to play everybody. 9 weeks, right, Chris?
Yeah, and if there's anything that we've learned is that there really aren't any easy games left in this league. There's just not. It's the reality of the situation, and that'll change on a year in, year out basis. But right now, where they're at with the way these programs are set up, I think everyone goes into every game thinking, hey, we got a chance today if things go right. And that's what we're seeing. The last game, which was our game of the week last week, boy, it did not disappoint. Williams and Trinity with an absolute classic. Trinity jumped out on Williams, scored on their first possession. Williams really struggled to get their offense going. They fell behind 14-0. They started to find their way in the second quarter, and then the Eves scored 21 unanswered to jump out to a 21-14 lead. And then it was back and forth in the fourth quarter. A late Bantams touchdown forced overtime, and then Trinity won the game in overtime. Dave, I don't know how much of this game you got to see. It was an absolutely great football game with some really interesting stats that we can break down. But this win for Trinity probably, I don't want to say it benefits the rest of the NESCAC, because I think most teams in the NESCAC would probably, if they could choose, say, hey, listen, Trinity's out of contention. They would probably sign up for that. But it certainly opens the doors for every team in the conference at this point.
Yeah, because of the Chris Grace rule, staggered start, I was able to catch most of the fourth quarter and the overtime, such that it lasted very long. But it was a really excellent played Division III college football game. You had two very good teams, historical teams, coached, obviously, Coach Raymond and Coach Devaney. A lot of talent on both sides of the field, obviously. Been there many times, a great atmosphere up at Williams College. So it was really, and the crowd was into it. It was very exciting. Game, of course, went to overtime. And Trinity, I think, was fortunate, not to take anything away from Trinity. I thought they played very well, and especially after giving up the 14-point lead and then hanging in and playing catch up and tying the game. And then the overtime, our guest from last week, Owen Johansson, just had an unbelievable day, both throwing. That was the question mark. We knew he could run, but could he throw? And boy, could he throw. He threw over 300 yards. He threw a bunch of touchdown passes, and he ran for over 100 yards. Just a monster day for him in the loss. Unfortunately, the one play, I'm sure, of all the good he did during the game, the one play he's going to want back is the play in overtime. He's trying to get that extra yard. He is a competitor. If you heard him last week, you know what a competitor he is. He's trying to get that extra yard, and Trinity punched the ball out, recovers it, and of course, the play in overtime is if you stop them, regardless of how it is, turnover, missed field goal, 3 and out, whatever it is, all you need to do is score now. And Trinity got the ball back, and the first play, they threw Jackson Carroll threw a fade in the back corner of the end zone and a touchdown, and that's all she wrote, 27-21. Trinity, right? 27-21? Was that the final?
You're all around it. It was 34-28.
34-20. That was my that's my prediction. My prediction was 27-21, but it was I did pick Trinity by 6. So 34-28. But yeah, so that was it. It was the end of a great game. Clearly a game that either team could have won. Williams falls out of the ranks of the unbeaten. Trinity, of course, moves to 2-1, and Williams is part of that six-way, and so is Trinity, part of that six-way tie for first place in the NESCAC.
Yeah, a couple things to digest here. It felt like, so like I said, Trinity scored 2 touchdowns. They were up 14-0. And then Williams found their way. They scored 3 touchdowns in a row. They're up 21-14. And Trinity immediately, listen, the mettle of a championship program showed up. Every time they needed to respond, Trinity responded. When Williams scored, Trinity on the next time they touched the ball, they scored, and they scored quickly. Drives under 3 minutes both times. When Williams went up 21-14, Trinity answered with a 5-play, 75-yard drive in 2.5 minutes. And then Williams goes back down and scores again. And Trinity gets the ball back and 8-play drive, 77 yards, 234. That's almost incredible. 235 and 234 in their 2 drives. So for Williams, I think the disappointment will come in that their defense couldn't find a way to get a big stop when they needed to. Because if you just look at the box score, Williams probably should have won this game based on the stats. But you win the games based on making winning plays. And you said it, Trinity dialed up plays when they needed to win the game. And you look at the numbers, you talk about Owen Johansson, who was our guest last week. He threw for 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over through the air, 17 carries, 75 yards on the ground. Just a bell cow for the Eves. But the turnover in overtime was the difference. And Jackson Carroll, our big question throughout the course of the year was, who's going to take over the reins at Trinity? I think that you can put that to bed. Jackson Carroll's the quarterback, 302 yards, just 1 touchdown, but really what we've come to expect from a Trinity quarterback, just really manipulated the offense and put them in positions to be successful. Rushing the ball, nothing crazy is going to jump out to you for Trinity. They carried the ball 34 times for a 3.6-yard average, 122 yards, but 4 touchdowns on the ground. So when they got in positions to score, they figured out ways to do it on the ground, sometimes utilizing a wildcat type situation. Nolan O'Brien with 2 rushing touchdowns, something that you don't necessarily expect to see. And then obviously the balance. We said it going into the year. Trinity has 2 guys that are exceptional on offense. It's DiNapoli and O'Brien. They've got other pieces that are really good that we'll talk more about as the year goes on. But those 2 guys were the difference offensively for Trinity. And the Bantams made the big play when they needed to. And that's what great teams do. They figure out ways to make big plays. And for Williams, a huge opportunity goes by the wayside because Williams was the only team that had the ability to control their destiny completely. And now that's gone. So now we're faced with basically every team thinking they could still win an NESCAC championship, save maybe 1 or 2. And it's going to be more entertaining for us manning this podcast, Dave. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dave will give you his week 4 power rankings and we'll preview week 4. Week 4? Yeah, week 4 of the NESCAC. I don't know. I'm losing track, man. We'll be back with more right after this. It's 9 weeks, your unofficial NESCAC football podcast. Welcome back to 9 weeks, your unofficial NESCAC football podcast, alongside the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle. I'm Chris Grace. It is our pleasure to welcome in the head coach of the Amherst Mammoths, E.J. Mills, coming off of a big 30-14 victory over previously unbeaten Tufts. The Mammoths are off to a very nice 2-1 start. And Coach, first and foremost, I know we talked to you before this season. It's great to have you back on the podcast. I could tell in speaking with you that you felt pretty good about your team and that you thought that you had some pieces there. And we saw in week 1, you guys got off to a really nice start against Bates and just couldn't quite seal the deal. But talk about the pride that comes with dealing with that level of adversity and the response that you've seen from your team first and foremost.
Yeah, first off, thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on and you guys doing this. But exactly, right? It was devastating as much as it was a tough loss. You give Bates a ton of credit. Those guys played 60 plus and earned that victory. But we knew we did a lot of good things. And as disappointing as it was, we said, hey, we got to build off of it. And I think we've gotten better in each phase, each week. And that's what we're focusing on. But offensively, we've gotten some great production in the quarterback, Merrick Hill, playing well, and he's young and he's getting better. And so that's exciting for us. And that's what we're trying to build off of.
Yeah, you speak about, oh, sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Chris. No, I was going to say, we talked about this in the preseason with you, and I think we talked about it last year as well. Obviously, having a quarterback at any level is super important. And Merrick, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 7th in the NESCAC in rushing, as opposed to last year. I think he played 6 games. He threw around 8 picks, something like that. Yeah. You could see it was there. This year, he seems to be putting it all together for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I give Lee Grove, our OC and quarterback coach, has worked real hard with Merrick on it's really just going through your read and just making better decisions, right? And not forcing balls that maybe aren't there. And it's a full effort. The protection's been good and the receivers are capable. It's always a team game. But yes, Merrick is definitely, you can see some maturity there. And that's exciting because he's a talented kid.
Yeah, and in many ways, going into the year, the narrative for us on our preview show was, excuse me, there's not a lot of experience at the quarterback position coming back. And we talked about Middlebury had some experience going back, and obviously our player guest in this show, Luke Kurzum, has some experience. But we didn't spend a ton of time talking about the experience you guys had, but I think in many ways, it was an invaluable experience, right? Because it was, I don't want to say low pressure because you want to win every football game, but where you guys were at last year, you were free rolling a little bit, right? So you put the kid out there probably before he was ready. Maybe in different seasons he wouldn't have been playing, but you were in those games in a league where there's no preseason, where there's no out of conference games. Those games are invaluable. Talk about what last year meant to his growth, because obviously what you have is perhaps the most dynamic quarterback in the league right now, or one of, if not the most. And without having that opportunity last year, and maybe, I don't want to say again, low pressure, but less pressure than playing for a league championship or a little 3. Talk about that.
Yeah, it was. The decision you make was, hey, listen, let's go with Merrick. The potential is there, and let's put him out there. And there was a lot of good. There was a lot of bad in terms of just some of the decision making, but certainly felt like that would help him grow. And learn on the job training. There's nothing like in-game pressure, and because quarterback, nobody hits their quarterback in practice. They're always protected. You get in the ball game, now the bullets are flying, and it's really going to determine, can this kid make the decisions? We've had kids look good in practice before, right? And all of a sudden you're like, man, they're not able to process everything in a game because of just the nature of what that means. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think we benefited from getting Merrick some quality reps last year during games, because that's invaluable.
Yeah, your defense the last couple of years has been really good, actually. And this year, your offense the last couple of years has struggled 9th or 10th in the NESCAC in yards. This year, I think you're middle of the pack, which makes a big difference. Obviously, we talked about the quarterback, but he's not the only guy getting it done at this point.
Yeah, we've been playing well up front, right? We're running the football. We ran for over 100 the last 2 games. We haven't done that in a while, and that opens everything up, right? And it just does. And the quarterback's been part of that run game, but Demetrius Smith, Demo, he's done a really nice job. But up front, our guys are playing pretty well. And so like I said, it's always a team situation. And Carter Jung is a senior, really talented kid, and he's been breakout. I don't know if it's a breakout. He's been a good player, but he's certainly made some big plays. And that's something that I certainly expected him to do this year. He's a kid that can really move and a great athlete. And sometimes it takes to your senior year to put everything together, so to speak.
So, Coach, one thing we've talked about this year is, and we thought going into the year it was going to be like this. I don't think we knew that this league has never had more parity.
Yeah.
And we thought that going into the year. Have you ever, in your time in the NESCAC, has there ever been a time through 3 weeks that there's not a team that's unbeaten?
No way.
Is there? Never, right?
Never.
Has it happened since you've been in the league?
Never. Never has there been 5 2-1 teams or whatever it is. That's just never happened. Typically, somebody went undefeated, but never been a 2-loss league champion. Like that's not been a thing. And no, it definitely, it's happened more and more over the last 4 to 5 years. But in last year, beating Wesleyan, those things just didn't used to happen, meaning league champ and a 2-win team. But
right.
It's true. You're talking to Luke, and I saw that he was like, that dude can play. Hamilton, they're a tough team, and he is a handful. And so it just is. In Bates, we were like, obviously they've had some injury now. I did hear that the surgeon got hurt. That's horrible. But you want to talk about a team that was physical and running to the ball defensively, like it. So it's true what everyone's saying. The parity is absolutely there.
So with that in mind, you guys are 2-1, right? So you're going into another week. There's 9 of them. That's obviously the title of our show. Every team in this league, you got to feel like, why not us, right? At this point,
you sit there and say, okay, but we also understand you have to learn how to be consistent. And that's what I've been telling our guys is you just every week theoretically should be the same. Right? Your process should be the same. Big game. They're all big games, but you have to do the work throughout the week in your preparation to get ready to compete on Saturday. The teams that execute the best are going to win. And it really is about staying somewhat even keel and saying, we're excited we won, yet we know we have to go back to work and really reprogram everything and get ourselves ready to compete. Mid is such a well-coached team. The quarterback is just a really good decision maker, throws the ball incredibly accurate. And then Ahone, number 8, like Ahone, he's met more circus catches than he's just a really special player. And then the freshman is playing really well. That Louis, the kid from Belmont Hill, and they're huge up front. They're running backs. They got 3 of them. They're really good. So every week they're talented teams, and every team is well coached and is going to be well prepared. So you got to show up every week. That's for sure.
So before, that's a great preview of next week's game, and see if Chris has any other questions about next week's game. But we didn't touch really on your defense. And I know you've had a lot of injuries. We talked about that before while we were in our pregame mode. But you're getting all these guys back, obviously. The older Harmon came back last week. You're going to get the younger Harmon back, as you said, this week. Not to let out any secrets. Hopefully I didn't just...
Yeah.
But I think the defense has played well, and with these guys back, I'm sure you're expecting big things.
Yeah, I mean, it always starts up front. And our nose guard, Kemet Fisher, he's a destructive guy. He causes a lot of issues. Jackson Duncan is a really good player. Wyatt Morgan he's a sophomore, but playing well. But we play a lot of guys up front, used to. And then Ty Kazanowski is our kind of weak side, outside linebacker. And he's just a tough, physical kid. And one of our captains is a junior, which tells you that doesn't happen very often where the kids vote a junior captain. I think it starts right there. And so we're doing a nice job. And Carson Skotek has fought injury. He's our will linebacker, our weak side inside backer. He's healthy, and knock on wood, he is right now. He's a really good player, and he's physical. He can really run. And so that's him being healthy. It's been a big difference for us as well.
Coach, so the last one I got for you is we've seen a trend, teams in this league with the parity coming off of a big win. There's been a tendency that there might be a letdown, right? What are some of the things that you're putting in place to prevent that? How are you obviously going to Middlebury? That's as tough of a place to go as there is in the league. That's got to be a pretty easy one. But how do you envision your team staying within themselves and continuing to do the things that you've done early in the season successfully? And what are the keys to being successful this weekend?
Yeah, it really is. You have to manage the trip. It's our longest day trip, right? It's one of those things where we have overnights that are very similar in distance, but yet it is just one of those things where that's a day trip for us. You have to break it up, and we do that. But it's the mantra that I've always talked about. It's, hey guys, every week, win or lose, we practice on Sunday. We take Monday off. That's our deal. You come in on Sunday, we need to lift and do our film and get on the field. But then Tuesday morning, we have a meeting, and then you start your practices. It's every week is a grind, and every week, but you have to prepare to win a football game. And you can't, everybody wants to get to Saturday, but you got to stay focused on the process day to day. Every day is important leading up to Saturday. And hopefully we have a pretty veteran group overall. There are certainly kids that have played a lot of football for us, and we haven't won that much, and yet I think it's a pretty veteran group that maybe listens to me just a little bit. You're just trying to get a little bit. And so, we certainly will see, Chris, but we're hoping that we're just sticking to our process and ready to compete on Saturday. And really understanding Middlebury is just, they have a great staff who do things incredibly detailed, and they are good at what they do. And that's in all phases, and we know that.
Coach, always appreciate you coming on, and obviously we wish you luck on Saturday. Big game, get to 3-1. Hasn't happened in a couple of years. I'm sure you're chomping at the bit to make that happen.
Guys, I appreciate it. And we're excited for the opportunity, but excited for that, and just appreciate you guys doing this, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks again, Coach. And when you get a chance, turn those lights back on, clap on, okay?
I'm up in our field. It went off, so I don't know what the hell happened.
Hey, listen, it's a timer. You have no control of those things. You've only been there for 30 plus years. Who knows? Maybe you'll get that key at some point.
And Coach, we're glad you got your voice back. Absolutely.
Thanks,
100%.
guys.
You sound like $1 million, Coach. Go get him. That is the head coach of the Amherst Mammoths, EJ Mills. We'll be back with more 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast right after this. This episode of 9 Weeks NESCAC Football is sponsored by Sloan Walsh LLP. On the gridiron, victories come from preparation, smart play calling, and a defense you can trust. For 91 years, Sloan Walsh has brought that same approach to the legal field, especially when the game is toughest in insurance disputes. They know how to protect the end zone, move the chains, and deliver results when it matters most. From complex litigation to safeguarding what matters to you, their team is built to go the distance. Sloan Walsh LLP. Trusted counsel, championship effort. Visit sloanwalsh.com to learn more. 9 Weeks NESCAC is brought to you with the support of Game Day Sports. You can trust your game day experience with Game Day Sports, your ultimate partner in celebrating athletic excellence. They collaborate with teams and parent groups to create memorable keepsakes for every fan and player. From personalized parent lanyards to giant heads to senior banners that cheer on your team's favorite players, their custom print pieces capture the spirit and passion of your team. The beautifully designed programs are packed full of essential information that every NESCAC fan eagerly anticipates, making them cherished keepsakes for supporters and players alike. With over 25 years' experience, trust Game Day Sports to bring your team's story to life in vibrant print, ensuring every game day is one to remember. Welcome back to 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, alongside the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle. Chris Grace back with you. We welcome in the signal caller for the Hamilton Continentals, Luke Kurzum, coming off of another 300-yard passing game, a big victory, your first victory of the year. Luke, first and foremost, thanks for joining our podcast. Listen, you guys had a rough year last year, but you went out with a victory. Talking with your coach in the preseason preview, he felt pretty good about where you guys were going to be this year. You've had 3 games. All of them have been competitive. Your offense has really been ticking. How do you feel about where you guys are at and what the rest of the season is going to look like for your team?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited about what we got. We're starting to get the pieces where we want them, starting to dial up, kind of get more comfortable with our brand of offense, our brand of defense as well, and don't really try and look ahead. My thing is really just want to know each week, want to know each play, want to know each practice. Just try and get better each day. And we played well this weekend, but there's always things that we got to improve on. So that's my biggest thing, is just keep working, keep getting better. And the NESCAC is really competitive. Every team is competitive with each other. We got to go out every week and just try and put our best foot forward. And it really honestly starts in practice and just focusing on what's important. But we're excited to get after it this weekend against Wesleyan. And like I said, the NESCAC's pretty competitive. We got to turn some of those close games into wins.
Yeah, Luke, you've been starting now a couple of years. You've seen a lot of action. Obviously, you've had success in the past. This year, you're off to just an unbelievable start. 7 touchdowns, no picks. You're leading the NESCAC in passing yards. Anything different this year than in the past? Or is it pretty much just more talent around you, the team playing better? What's the secret?
I'm feeling a little more confident and a little more comfortable with 2 years now of experience under my belt. As far as the team goes, guys are just making plays. You go to where we have our big plays. It's not like I throw the most perfect pass or something like that. The guys are making plays on the edge. The line's blocking for me really well. And there's only so much that I can really do. It's got to be the people around me that are making the plays. And I think from my standpoint, the biggest difference from last year and the year before to this year is like my comfort and overall comfortability within the offense, and just being able to expand what I'm able to do on Saturdays. And just got to give credit to the guys making plays on the edge, because really some of these catches that they're making it's unreal. And there's only, like I said, there's only so much I can do. I put the ball in the area and let them go make the plays.
Talk about some of the guys that are helping you out. One thing I look at when I look at the stats is how you're really spreading the ball around. I'm seeing 6 different guys with multiple catches, really balanced attack. At this point, do you feel like, and many times in this league, there's 1 or 2 guys and people lean on those 1 or 2 guys. You must feel really good about the totality of your weapons on offense and your ability to spread the ball around. And when an offense is really ticking, that's what you typically see, right? Because you're not like, oh, I'm looking at X, and if X isn't there, I'm looking at Y. You're running the offense the way it's supposed to be run. You're not focusing in on just one guy. You're actually focusing in on the play call. Is that kind of how you feel at this point?
Yeah, it's all like progression based. And the receiver room we have a very deep receiver room. Our 3 guys that we put out, excluding our tight end, which Jack has been playing extremely well this year, but 3 receivers that are absolute studs. And then say they need to come out for a break, we have 3 more guys that are very able, willing, and ready to step up. And we have 2 running backs that have just been killing it this year in the run game and in the pass game. That is somewhere where we can just keep guys fresh, and it's not one read and get to my check down, or one read and run the ball. Like, I'm able to work through all those reads because guys are getting open everywhere. And there's multiple guys, like 1 to 2 spots deep, that are able to make plays and will always get in the right spots, it's extremely helpful.
Yeah, and by the way, he was referring to Jack. That's Jack Francesa, who's the son of Mike Francesa from Sports Talk fame, plays for the Hamilton Continentals, just to throw that in there, a little name dropping. But our listeners or viewers would like to get to know you a little bit better. You're from Jersey, obviously, played high-level high school football, Caldwell High School, very good high school football. How did you make the decision to go to Hamilton, and what are you majoring in, and what are you thinking about doing after your Hamilton days are over?
So I'm double majoring in economics and Hispanic studies, which is just fancy for Spanish. So I'll be going abroad in the spring to Madrid and doing like a full immersion Spanish program there to really just learn the language and see what Spanish culture is like. Coming out of high school, I played lacrosse in high school too, and I was trying to decide what route I wanted to pursue. And I just liked my role in football. I like just like the energy around football. Towards the later half of my high school career, just what I fell in love with and what I thought I could do at the next level. And the NESCAC in general is just such great schools. I remember when I was looking, one of my coaches in high school, you may know him, Daryl Weiss. He was saying that going to a NESCAC school is you're doing it for the next 40 years of your life, not just for the next 4. I was looking really anywhere in the NESCAC, and I visited Hamilton for a game. I just fell in love with the campus. All the coaches are awesome here, and the culture has just been getting better and better each year. And that's really how I fell into my spot at Hamilton. And like I said, the school is very good, and I'm very thankful for the competitiveness and how like highly people regard the NESCAC and Hamilton. The alumni network was also extremely attractive for my future. As far as the future goes, I'm looking to maybe get into something finance related. I'm trying to dial down exactly what. Looking for internships next summer is honestly not the most fun experience. It's like college recruitment all over again, but I'm just trying to take it step by step, enjoy football while I still can. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Luke, we could talk about this afterwards, but I do know a guy that is finance related that may or may not be on this podcast, and his name is not Christopher Grace. We can touch base on that afterwards, but I might have an insight for you but I'll tell you right now, a lot of that's going to be contingent on how Saturday goes. Okay. So if you throw 5 touchdowns, that offer might go right out the window. Okay.
Just saying.
We are an unbiased podcast I'm kidding, obviously, as we shift towards Saturday, obviously a big challenge playing against a Wesleyan team that won the NESCAC last year, had the best defense in the NESCAC last year, and they graduated 6 first-team all-NESCAC players from the defense last year, but their defense really hasn't missed a beat if you paid attention. They are really dynamic in terms of stopping the run. Teams have been unable to get anything going on the ground against the Cardinals this year, and they haven't necessarily been easy to deal with through the air either. What have you guys been focusing on this week as you try to dissect the Cardinals? And I'm sure that you guys have been paying attention to number 14 on Wesleyan, Dylan Connors, who is as dynamic of a secondary player as there is in the league.
And where's he from, Chris?
I'm guessing Jersey.
Of course.
So we gotta love the Jersey guys. Yeah, Wesleyan, like you said, defending NESCAC champs. Their defense is extremely fast, extremely sound, and they're really dynamic in the way that they play. They're able to keep 6 guys in the box while being able to guard people on the edge, which is not something that every team is able to do. As far as you said, his name is Dylan Connors, number 14. He's a stud. You see it on the field. I have a lot of respect for their guys because they just play really hard. They're really savvy, and they're good at forcing turnovers, which is something that has excelled their defense this year and has allowed them to be as good as they are. As far as what we're doing, we're watching a ton of film and just trying to prepare ourselves the best way possible to take advantage of spots that we think that they may be weak, but it's a tall task because, like you said, defending NESCAC champs, going down to Connecticut, I've heard plenty of stories from previous NESCAC folks. It's not an easy place to play. So
that's right, because when you played there 2 years ago, it was on the lacrosse field.
It was on the turf, yes.
I know that because I was on the call for that game. So that's right. I forgot about that. So this could be your first experience playing at the oldest field in the NESCAC.
Yes, yeah. So not something I'm necessarily excited for or not excited for. I've never really played on grass, so
You've
that should
never
be
played
fun.
on grass before.
Maybe when I was like much younger in like my youth years, but I would
You know
say
what?
once I got into middle school, it was turf from then on.
That's wild. That's so sorry, Dave. I know you got more, but so as
Yeah.
someone who I covered high school football on the radio for a long time, Friday nights, and then I do college football on Saturday, play by play. And when I left Connecticut to go to college, and when I came back to do high school games, and there wasn't a single grass field, and I was like blown away by it. And now at the NESCAC, obviously, it's the same thing. There's only one, right? It's just
That's
Wesleyan.
it. That's it. In high
And
school,
it's the same, yeah.
in high school, you know how many games I played on turf in my 4 years? One.
It wasn't
One
the same.
game.
It wasn't the same to Dave, but you're dating yourself here.
That was 2010. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Yeah, I never played in a high school game on turf either, and
Yeah.
I'm just as old as you are, Luke. So realistically, though, one of the keys to your offense this year has been your ability to protect the football. So you talk about Wesleyan turning the ball over. How do you balance being aggressive, because you're going to have to be aggressive to win this football game, with also taking care of the football?
I mean, it's just protecting the football, making the right decisions, not forcing anything. That's something that I think I've gotten better at as I've gotten more comfortable in the offense. Is just you don't need to force anything. Go down to your check down, just live to play another down, and don't let them take advantage of poor decisions. So it's going to be a big task for me to just make good decisions on Saturday, and then when we're running the ball, just hold on to the football. And it's protecting the football shouldn't be too difficult sometimes. I think sometimes it gets overcomplicated into a whole lot of this, but when you run the ball, 2 hands on the football, and I just got to make good decisions and don't give them the opportunity to make plays, basically, is my goal for Saturday.
Yeah, we spoke to Coach Mills earlier, and we were talking a little bit about parity. He's been around the NESCAC for a really long time. You've now been around a couple of years. We have 6 2-1 teams, right? There's a couple 1-2 teams. One team in Bowdoin has struggled a little bit, obviously 0-3. But having been around this for a couple of years, do you ever think you'd see anything like this, with anybody being able to beat anybody any given week?
This might not be what you're expecting, but I'm honestly not crazy surprised. I feel like the past 2 years, maybe not as much my freshman year, but last year, and I know the record says 1-8, but I really feel, and I can confidently say that I feel like we were in almost every single game. I think we had 6 games decided by 1 score, and a lot of those that were decided in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely.
So that kind of comes down to not making mistakes at the end of the games and just being able to play full 60 minutes. Not that I don't think it's surprising as like the history of the NESCAC goes, but I really feel like the NESCAC is one of the more competitive leagues that it's going to come down to Saturday, and like you can talk all you want, but what happens on Saturday is different. And going into a game against someone who is a team that is more historically acclaimed in the NESCAC doesn't really mean much, because it really is a competitive league. And I feel that if we play our best game on any given Saturday, we can compete with every single team in the NESCAC. And I think every other team in the NESCAC can say that same thing.
By the way, for the record, I'm not surprised by your answer. So
No, I think that's an astute point, and no one follows it as closely as we do. And you're right. Pretty much, there's some outliers, but pretty much every game in this league, even though you might be able to predict who might win or who might lose, but if you watch the game in its totality, pretty much every game, the games I cover, there haven't been any blowouts.
Yeah.
And I broadcast these games for years upon years, and those days are done. There might be a blowout, but it's because a situation presented itself where it turned into a blowout, but it's not because one team is completely overmatched. That's, I think, the biggest point, is that there are no teams in this league that show up on the field and they're completely overmatched. So it's about the little details and not turning the ball over, not getting the stupid penalties, not giving up pick sixes and punt returns for touchdowns, etc. But you're right. Listen, Luke, we appreciate it. I know you got a lot on your plate right now. We haven't even talked about your schoolwork, so I'm sure you've got some of that you got to deal with as you get ready for a long trip. And we'll be there on Saturday. I'll be on the call Hopefully we'll get to see you. If not, we wish you the best of luck and best of luck for the rest of the year. Keep doing what you're doing, man. It's awesome to see clean quarterback play in the NESCAC, and keep doing it. I loved a lot of your thoughts. You're insightful, and I genuinely enjoyed it. From one non-Jersey guy to a Jersey guy, best of luck, and I will look forward to calling the game on Saturday and seeing what you have to offer.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good luck on Saturday, Luke. We'll be seeing you up there. But Chris, back to you.
That is the signal caller of the Hamilton Continentals. We'll be back with more 9 weeks, your unofficial NESCAC football podcast, right after this. Welcome back to 9 weeks, your unofficial NESCAC football podcast, alongside the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle, Chris Grace with you. We surely appreciate you sticking with us as we get ready to preview week 4 in the NESCAC. But before we do that, we want to thank our sponsors, Game Time Sports and Sloan Walsh. We wouldn't be able to put this podcast out without their support, so thank you once again. Also, we would really wish and hope that if you are listening/watching this podcast, that you will take the time to click the like and subscribe button. It really helps us, and we're trying to build our base as we are the only people doing this for this league. So if you watch every week, please subscribe. It would really help us out. Dave, week 4, ton of parity in the league. Looking at the matchups this week, I would guess, just looking at this, that your spreads are going to be pretty straightforward, but there's a game or two here that maybe stands out. We'll just go right down the ladder like we normally do. There's more of a stagger here with the start times. Don't judge me on the games that I pick first, but the first one on my list.
We want to do the
Oh,
rankings
sorry. I'm
first?
sorry. You're right. I apologize.
It's all
I
good.
apologize. I got ahead of myself. Dave, I totally disagree with your power rankings last week. I'm sure I'll disagree with them again, but you might as well give them to the audience because you put them together. So your hard work deserves to be paid off. So let us know where your power rankings stand here, as they have, through 3 weeks, made drastic changes on a week-to-week basis, I imagine.
Yeah, the interesting thing is on the boards this week, nobody really went after me on the rankings. And by the way, I got a couple of kudos for even trying to rank the teams with 6, 2, and 1. So we're gonna start this from the top this week. So we'll get a drum roll. Our new number 1 team, obviously, because the number 1 team was Williams and they lost. The new number 1 team, hailing from Hartford, Connecticut, is your Trinity Bantams, number 1 this week. And I just feel like the level of competition they've beaten, they're on the rise. Yeah, they lost week 1. They've won 2 straight. They played a heck of a game against a very good football team in Williams. So I have them as my first ranked team. Chris, any comments on that?
No, that must mean that Williams is your number 2 ranked team.
That is not correct. That is not correct. My number 2 ranked team, also with a 2-1 record, is the Wesleyan Cardinals. The mysterious Methodists from Middletown are our second ranked team. I just thought they looked very good last week. They could have won the Tufts game. They didn't. They could have. They probably should have. They played well week 1 against Middlebury. They had Middlebury, as it turns out, no surprise, is a really good football team. So I think there's a lot of things to like about Wesleyan. Very difficult team to run against. They held a team that's primarily a running team in Bates to basically nothing on the ground. As I said earlier, 32 yards, 31 carries. Wesleyan is right now my second ranked team, which brings me to my third ranked team, which is the Williams Eafs, our third ranked team, or my third ranked team. Tough loss to Trinity, obviously. The offense, again, topped the 400-yard mark. They racked up 466 yards of total offense. But the defense gave up a lot of yards. They just barely beat Hamilton. I think they're still a very good team, and I think they're still going to win a ton of football games, and I think they're going to be in the mix at the end of the season. But they're my number 3 ranked team. Number 4 is the Tufts Jumbos, also at 2-1. As I said earlier, their offense has struggled a little bit. Their defense, though, is playing.
Hold on. You
Go
have
ahead.
Tufts at number 4?
Yep, I do.
Over the team that just beat them by 16 points, that has the same record.
I do.
Okay.
It could have been a tie, But I do have.
We're a fair and balanced podcast, so I just wanted to.
You can call me out on that. That's fine. It's a very valid point. I just think Tufts' overall body of work, I do have them ahead of Amherst. So we'll get to Amherst in a second, but I do have Tufts. Tufts is also 2-1, but I think just Tufts' body of work has been a little bit better. Look, these 4, 5, 6 teams, you can throw them in a hat and pick them out. I have number 5. I have Middlebury.
Okay.
They've looked better the last 2 weeks. They lost to Wesleyan. Wesleyan's obviously a very good team. They've gotten the running game going with Connor McClellan. Their defense has played better as well. They're getting all those new guys in there. I'm going to be really curious to see how they do this week. I think this week is a really good test for them, so we'll see how that works out. Our number 6 team is Amherst. Obviously, Coach Mills is a guest this week. They're 2-1, but they were also 2-1 last year. We know how last year's season turned out. They haven't been 3-1 in a very long time. I think they're right in the mix. They're one of the 6 2-1 teams. I just think that they haven't played as well as some of the teams above them overall. Let's see how they do this week. They go out there and get the win this week against the Middlebury. Obviously, our 5 and 6 teams are playing. That's going to be a good test. Almost at this point in the season, almost an elimination game. But we're going to get to the games in a little bit. My number 7th ranked team is the Colby Mules. Since their week 1 win against Trinity, which was, I don't want to take anything away from them, extremely impressive. They've obviously struggled the last 2 weeks. They're 9th in the league in scoring, 9th in total offense. They've yet to throw for a touchdown pass, and they lead the NESCAC in interceptions with 7. So it's just been a really tough start for Colby offensively. They have a good defense, but it's tough to win football games if you can't get any continuity going on the offensive side of the football. Number 8 team is the Bates Bobcats, also 1-2 team. Obviously, tough loss at home to Wesleyan. Also a tough loss with losing their starting quarterback, which looked pretty serious to us, having been there and watched them get carried off. They're going to have to be resilient and turn it around. They definitely have some guys there. They definitely have the personnel to do it, but I have them as my 8th ranked team. Number 9, I have the Hamilton Continentals at 1-2. They've done some great things on the offensive side of the football. Our guest Luke Kurzum has been really, really stellar at quarterback. Chris, they throw the ball to everybody. They throw the ball. They lead the NESCAC in passing offense. Their 449 yards last week against Bowdoin was the most total yards they've had since 2018. It was a good win for them. They're in the win column. Took them 9 weeks, last year to get in the win column. But they're going to have their work cut out for them against Wesleyan this week as they go on the road, and we'll talk about that game a little bit later. And our 10th ranked team in week number 3 is the Bowdoin Polar Bears. They go to 0-3. They've also struggled offensively. They're playing a freshman quarterback at this point. They moved their former starting quarterback, Wolfendale, to wide receiver. They played that all blitz, high pressure defense. But the one thing that seems to be missing is they don't have a Coy Price or a Drew Ortiz or some of the guys they've had there the last couple years. And the defense is the same, and they put pressure on, and they get tackles for losses, and they get sacks. But this doesn't seem to be playing at the same level that they've been playing. But look, very well coached team. Coach Hammer, very experienced. I'm sure he's got some surprises in store for us down the year to reverse the trend here. As far as the offensive and defensive and special team players of the week, my choices for offensive players of the week were actually co-offensive players of the week. I picked Connor McClellan, who the NESCAC also recognized, from Middlebury, had a hell of a game at running back. And my other choice was Luke Kurzum at Hamilton. I just thought Luke had a great game, and he deserves some recognition for that. On the defensive side of the ball, I disagreed with the NESCAC a little bit. My choice for defensive player of the week this week in week 3 was linebacker Chris DiMartino from Wesleyan. Chris had 4.5 tackles for loss. He had 1.5 sacks. Just played out of his mind. Chris is at a Stepanak in Westchester. Great kid, great family. Last 3 years, he's been a special teams guy and waiting his turn. And as a senior, he stepped in and he's playing very well for the Cardinals. And lastly, we didn't have a particularly strong week on the special teams side, although the punter from Amherst, F.E. Ilgar, really stood out. So he was my pick as the NESCAC Special Teams Player of the Week. He was also the NESCAC's pick for Special Teams Player of the Week. So, Chris, those are my rankings. Not easy to rank 6 2-1 teams, I have to tell you. Probably can put a bunch of these teams in a hat and just pick them out. Fortunately, a number of them play each other this week, so this thing's going to start getting sorted out as we head into week 4.
Hopefully it gets easier as we move forward. I know there's been a lot of tough nights at the Bagatelle household, so hopefully we'll be able to push forward and figure that out. We're going to take a quick break. We come back. Dave and I will preview week 4 right after this on 9 Weeks, on official NESCAC Football Podcast. Welcome back to 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast. It's that time. It's week 4. It's time to preview the games. Okay, as we look at the ledger, first game up, Williams travels to Brunswick. Dave, let's keep this as brief and to the point as we can. Williams coming off of a disappointing overtime loss to Trinity, big favorite against Bowdoin. I imagine we see this the same way. Quick, less than 30 seconds. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I think Williams is just going to pound the rock. They're going to run early and often. They've got Owen Johansson and about 20 other running backs. They're going to get carries. Bowdoin's young and rebuilding. They're playing a lot of freshmen and sophomores. They got a young quarterback. I have a hard time seeing this being a competitive game. I think I have the spread Williams giving 24 points. I think Williams covers that. I think Williams wins 38-10, something in that range.
Yep. Not going to disagree with you there. I think we're right about aligned on that one. The only thing I'll say is that's probably not an incredibly enjoyable trip. So early kickoff, 1 p.m. kickoff might be a slight challenge for Williams to get off to a fast start, but definitely a get-back game for the Eves. All right, next up, we have a game that we'll both be at, Hamilton and Wesleyan. We've talked about this game a little bit. We talked with the Hamilton signal caller, Luke Kurzum. This seems like a real contrast in styles. It's a Wesleyan team that completely has shut down the run against a Hamilton team that loves to live through the air. You got to think Hamilton's got to be all guns ablazing if they're going to have a chance to win this game in Middletown, but Cardinals seem to be pretty balanced and playing some good football.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game. I think give Hamilton, I guess, a puncher's chance. I think you're going to see them throw the ball 40, 50, 60 times in this game. The better running teams in the league haven't been able to run against Wesleyan. Hamilton has not been terrific running the ball, so I don't expect them to have success running the ball. So I would expect Luke's going to be ice in his arm after this one, win or lose. He's thrown a lot of passes already this year. He leads the league in passing. He's been fantastic. But Wesleyan does defend the pass also. They also can rush the passer pretty well. And I think Hamilton is going to have a tough time containing the Wesleyan offense. Wesleyan's very balanced. I think Wesleyan will have some success running the ball, but I look for Matt Fitzsimons to have some success throwing it to guys like Blake Newcomb and Dante Kelly and the tight ends there, who both the tight ends have played really well. Interestingly enough, Hamilton does not play particularly well in Middletown. Wesleyan's won 6 of the last 7 games there, and Wesleyan scored more than 30 points each of those games. Wes has won 11 of their last 12 games. Overall, the last time Hamilton beat Wesleyan was 2018. I was at that game.
So was I.
Kenny Gray had a hell of a day.
Block punt.
Yeah, they won 33-29. It was a really good effort by Hamilton. Yeah, I think Hamilton is decent enough team. I think they're going to win a few games this year. I just don't think that's going to happen on Saturday. I'm going to make Wesleyan at home a 17-point favorite, and I think Wesleyan gets over that 30-point mark again and wins something like 34-10, something in that ballpark.
I'll be calling this one, so I will not tell you my thoughts, but I will defer to the NESCAC man and his feelings. Okay, we're going to jump around here a little bit. It's the only night game on the ledger. It's Colby and Bates, obviously a rivalry game taking place in Lewiston. Two teams that are 1-2, two teams that both have really impressive wins, but some disappointing losses. It seems like the kind of game that is, you would think, gonna maybe define their season, as crazy as it sounds in week 4, but a huge game for both of these teams in Lewiston.
Yeah, one of these teams after week 4 is going to be 500, going to be 2-2. That's on the line. That's important, right?
One of them is going to be 1-3. That's
one of them's going to be 1 and 3.
More important. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the first leg of the CBB. Little unusual they play a rivalry game like this early in the year, but they do. It's a night game, and good news is we'll get to watch it. At least I will. Yeah, Colby's sort of had their number the last couple years. Colby's beaten Bates the last 6 times they played. Colby, as we've discussed, has struggled on offense. Their defense has spent a lot of time on the field. Bates gives them a different challenge. Obviously, they're a run first. They run that flex option. They're going to be without, more than likely, Sergio Beltran, which means Perry will be the primary guy who's more of a thrower than he is the runner. But Bates still has guys like Ryan Linsky, and he's, in my mind, the X factor in this one. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think Bates' defense can contain the Colby offense. I have in Lewiston, night game, rivalry game, Bates giving 3 points, and I think Bates wins something like 17-14. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game, and I think it's going to be a very close game, but I give Bates a slight edge in this one.
Yeah, this one is tough because how Bates is going to approach this game with the new quarterback, inevitably it's going to change the way that they approach things. And we saw it against Wesleyan. It's going to have an impact. Colby beat Bates last year, and it sounds so simplistic. If Colby can figure out a way to play a football game without turning the ball over 2+ times, they're going to win this football game. But they haven't figured out a way to do that yet through 3 weeks. It's fun to be different. I'll take Colby 17-14.
Okay. One other point on this game that I forgot to make, and this was a big deciding factor for me. Colby's last in the NESCAC in rushing defense, and I think that is the one thing that Bates can do pretty well.
You say that, but their rushing numbers this year have been not good. They have not. Their average yard per rush has got to be right towards the bottom of the NESCAC.
Yeah,
their attempts obviously are there in their volume, but yeah, they haven't figured out a way to run the football so far this year. So even Linsky has really struggled.
Yep.
We'll have to wait and see. Now, I'm just going to guesstimate where your head was at here, but I'm going to save the game of the week for last. I'm going to guess what your mind is for the game of the week. So I'm going to move to Middlebury, Vermont here and say that Amherst and Middlebury is your penultimate game of the week. So I'm going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that's where your head is at. Amherst coming off of a big win. We talked to Coach Mills, going to Middlebury. This is a real statement game. One of these teams, whoever wins this game, everyone's going to take notice. They're right there. They're there for the rest of the league to know that they mean business and they're going to control their own destiny for the most part. Big game. How do you see this going in Vermont?
Yeah, this is an interesting game. Obviously, the winner of this game is going to have a share of first place in the league. Amherst hasn't started a season 3-1 since 2021. That was the last year they finished over 500. So I think this game is super important for them if they hope to get that 5, 6, 7 win mark, or maybe even more. Their offense has been playing a lot better this year. They were right in the middle of the pack in NESCAC. The last couple of years, they've either been last or ninth in total offense. And we know they can play defense. They have the Harmon brothers. Luke Harmon, the senior, he's going to be in the discussion probably for NESCAC Defensive Player of the Year. And they're getting great play at quarterback. With that being said, Middlebury, since their opening game loss to Wesleyan, has definitely figured things out. They've got a really good running back, Connor McClellan. They have probably the most experienced quarterback coming back in Brian Moran. Their defense is playing. They've allowed the fewest yards per game. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. I don't think this is going to be a blowout either way by any stretch. I'd be shocked if it was. I think Middlebury playing at home, I'll give them the edge. I have Middlebury giving 7 points, and I'm picking Middlebury to win this one 24-17. 17. I just think Amherst has not really played a complete game in a long time. Middlebury's getting better every week. I just feel like this is the kind of game that Middlebury will figure out, and Coach Manigault will figure out a way to get the W at home.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things to take into account here. Talking to Coach Mills, he talked about the distance of the commute. This is something we don't talk about a lot. You're almost penalized for being just close enough in this league to another school to where you have to go on day of. And that's what they're facing. And it is a 2 p.m. start time. So there's a little bit of a buffer there, but let's not kid ourselves. It changes your whole game day operation when you're having to drive morning of to a game where you're having to drive more than a couple hours.
And you're off the high. I've done that drive many times.
Yeah, of course.
You're an hour and 15 minutes, no highway, like 2-lane roads. And it's a trudge. You can't get there from here. It's a beautiful place, and they've got a great stadium, and it's a great tailgate. But just getting there from Amherst, it's
an ordeal, of course.
Yeah.
But my bigger point is that I think where this game is going to be won or lost is if Middlebury defensively can control Merrick Hill's ability to run the football. Because what I saw the one time I saw Middlebury this year was they're fairly conservative with their front in terms of, with a 3-man front, there's going to be opportunities for the quarterback to run the football. Unless they straight up spy him, which is not something that I saw, that would be where my concern is. If Middlebury can contain Hill, I think that they're going to be comfortable in this football game. But I'm very curious to see how this game plays out, because I think it's going to tell us probably more about Amherst than it is Middlebury. I think we know what Middlebury is. We're still trying to figure out what Amherst is. And we'll know more on Saturday. I think Middlebury 24-21.
Okay. So we're close. We're close on that one, Chris.
But there's a long pause there. All right. Game of the week. Tough.
Yep.
Trinity.
Yep.
Hartford. 1:30.
Yeah. This is the game of the week. Our number one ranked team against Tufts. Both teams, of course, part of that six-way.
Our number one ranked team?
Okay, my number one ranked team. How's that? Both teams, part of that six-way tie for the lead. The Bantams look like they're getting their act together, right? They played a very good Williams team, and they figured out a way to win on the road. Not an easy place to win. In overtime, they got it done. Tufts is another one of those teams. Put them in with Amherst, still trying to figure out what's going on with them. Offensively, they're still looking for their identity. The running game has been good, led primarily by Shapiro, but they've had some other guys run the ball okay. The quarterback, Keller's run the ball okay. They haven't had as much success throwing the ball. Their defense has been okay. They did beat Wesleyan. They beat Wesleyan predominantly because of the defensive touchdown as well as some special teams plays. Tufts another one of those teams looking to put a game all together. But here's the X factor. Trinity just historically has totally had Tufts numbers. They've only played, believe it or not, in the storied history of both these programs, because of the rotating schedule, and the NESCAC really wasn't formed until 2000. Not really sure why, but these teams have only played 16 times all time, believe it or not. And the Trinity Bantams have won the last 4 meetings between them. Of those 16 meetings, Trinity's won 15 of them. So Trinity's only won once all time historically. Again, Tufts has only won once historically against Trinity. And Trinity's never lost to Tufts at home. Trinity scored more than 40 points in their last 2 wins against the Jumbos. I think this game's going to be closer than that. I don't think Trinity is going to get to 40 points. I have Trinity as a 13-point favorite, and I think they win our game of the week 27-13, playing at the Coop in Hartford.
I'm really curious to see 2 things. One, how Trinity's offense continues to evolve, because it seems like the one takeaway I would say from the last 2 weeks watching Trinity is that their offense is starting to figure it out, obviously. Figuring out how they want to approach things, how to get the ball to their dynamic skill players. But also, I'm curious to see if, where Tufts goes here, because they've got to figure out a way to get their passing game going. You mentioned they're running the football. They clearly have dynamic players scattered around the field. They have playmakers. They just have to figure out how to get them the ball and create some big plays on offense. With all that being said, I can only see one winner here, and one way, shape, or form, a Bantam will win this football game, whether that is Trinity or Tufts, because as we know, Coach Savetti once was a Bantam football player. That I can tell you, but in all seriousness, I agree with you. I think Trinity wins this game 31-17, something like that.
So we're aligned.
I think we're pretty much aligned along the way here. As boring as that may seem, I think we deferred on other than that, it's going to be a ho-hum week, but
well, you didn't give the Wesleyan pick, and I get it. Even though I'm going to be in the booth with you at least for part of that game, I went on a limb.
Yeah, but you pull no punches in terms of neutrality. I, on the other hand, am a beacon for all things that are pure in this country, and I call it right down the middle. This is a fair and balanced podcast.
But I know, Chris, people are at home tracking how I'm doing on my picks for the year.
I get calls every day about
it. So I was 4-1 last week. I did not get that 5-0. Tufts wrecked that for me. And on the season, I am 11-4. So through 3 weeks,
15-0 on the season. So
that is not true. But because I know last week you did not pick.
I did
the
pick
Trinity Bantams.
Amherst. I did pick Amherst last week.
You did pick Amherst, but you didn't pick the Trinity Bantams to win. That's for sure.
Yeah, but based on the spread, I think I got one on you there. But not everyone is created equally, but mine paid out more than yours did. But hey,
there you go.
We digress. Listen, Dave, it's been a pleasure as always. I want to thank Coach Mills for taking the time. It's always a busy week. And obviously, we'd like to thank Luke Kurzum, who we'll see this weekend. And we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in and watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please leave your comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thank our sponsors, Sloan Walsh and Game Time Sports. If you're in Middletown on Saturday, please stop by and say hello. We'd love to hear from you. For everyone who listens, for the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle, I'm Chris Grace. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast. Enjoy the weekend. Until next time, so long, everybody.